And welcome back to Cleveland. We are fewer than 3 hours now from the official start to the Republican National Convention here at the Quicken Loans Arena. You can hear final preparations perhaps going on behind us. We're also learning more now about Donald Trump and his seemingly conflicting beliefs with his newly minted running mate, Indiana Governor Mike Pence. Donald Trump has blasted Hillary Clinton for voting to, among other things, authorize the war in Iraq. But he is giving Pence a pass for doing the very same thing. Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes asked them about the war on terror in their first joint interview that aired last night.
Now, look, we are going to get rid of ISIS, big league, and we're going to get rid of them fast. And we're going to use surrounding states. We're going to use NATO, probably. And we're going to declare war. It is war. When the World Trade Center comes tumbling down with thousands of people being killed, people are still, I have friends that are still suffering the effects.
If you remember, we went to Iraq.
Yeah, you went to Iraq, but that was handled so badly. And that was a war, by the way. That was a war that we shouldn't have done because Iraq did not knock down, Iraq did not
voted for it.
I don't care. If he wrote it,
you said it was bad judgment.
I was against it all the time. I was against it from the beginning. Iraq did not knock down the World Trade Center.
I want to talk about
reasonable people. And look, I respect Donald Trump's view of that, and history will be a judge. But I think what we agree on completely is that when President Obama made a decision to pull all American forces out of Iraq without a status of forces agreement, he created the instability in which ISIS was able to be created.
Everybody agrees on that.
And the leadership that he'll provide on the global stage is to confront exactly what resulted from the failed policies of this administration.
We have to move on, and we're not going to get to your
interesting subject.
Except for one thing.
Go ahead.
What do you mean you don't care that he voted?
It's a long time ago. And he voted that way, and they were also misled. A lot of information was given to people, but I was against the war in Iraq from the beginning. Now, I was a civilian, so people didn't care that much. I mean, you know, what difference? But I was against because I said it was going to destabilize the Middle East. But if you really look at it, Iraq did knock down, they didn't knock down the World Trade Center. It wasn't Iraq. It was others.
Yeah, but you used that vote of Hillary's, that was the same as Governor Pence.
Many people
as the example of her bad judgment.
Many people have, and frankly, I'm one of the few that was right on Iraq.
Yeah, but what about he?
Okay. He's entitled to make a mistake every once in a while.
But she's not. Okay, come on.
But she's not.
She's not.
No, she's not.
Okay, got it.
Well, here with me to discuss Leslie Sanchez, CBSN political contributor and Republican strategist. Also, Philip Rucker, national political correspondent for the Washington Post. And Philip, I want to start with you. You've been writing about the specific themes now that we'll see this week, all variations, subsets, I suppose, if you will, of the slogan, Make America Great Again. Tonight, it will be Make America Safe Again. What to make, then, of the choices that the campaign has made with regard to the themes we'll see this week?
Yeah, you know, I think we can expect Donald Trump's speakers tonight to talk a lot about terrorism, to talk about ISIS, how to defeat it. I mean, we're coming here in Cleveland at a really critical time for the world. We've had a lot of attacks around the world, and then we just had this police shooting in Baton Rouge. So I think we'll see a combination of talking about ISIS, talking about Donald Trump as the law and order candidate, about what he would do to protect police officers. We may see some references, negative references about Black Lives Matter movement, for example. One of the speakers is a sheriff from Milwaukee County who's been very outspoken about Black Lives Matter. And another thing we'll hear a lot about is Benghazi. The 2012 attacks, of course, Hillary Clinton's record as Secretary of State. There are going to be some Benghazi survivors on stage who no doubt are going to talk about their experiences there.
What potential issues then, Leslie, does the campaign run into where once perhaps the choreography of the attack could have been what this would have been about, but now that, as Philip mentions, this comes against the backdrop of real issues globally, of attacks seemingly by the day, and these are two campaigns that have really traded in fear-mongering. But now that the nation is actually collectively on edge, how does that change what might have been an otherwise rubber-stamped choreography of attack tonight?
You know, it's really interesting if you think about it in terms of timing. So it's realpolitik, something's actually happening. Right. If you think about the attacks in Europe and Paris particularly that were happening right before Thanksgiving, like in that November time frame, that a lot of families were coming home, coming together, and this was the topic of conversation. So something like that does have a poignant moment. When you have this series of events that we're talking about, and now a national convention, what is unusual here is that national security is first front and center. You have not seen that at a Republican convention since 2004, right after the events of 9/11, when, again, national security was on the forefront, and that became a big part. You had a lot of New York police commissioners talking about fighting against terrorism takes defensiveness, not contradiction, talking about the contrast between Republicans and Democrats. And I think the ultimate thing to think about is when people think about the American eagle being strong, they want to ensure it's a strong American eagle does not become a sitting duck. And that's what you hear in focus groups, that this command that America first, America makes America safe. That's the appeal that Donald Trump has that I don't think any other candidate did, certainly not in the Republican primary.
Phil, you also, in an article you wrote over the weekend, wrote the convention is the GOP's chance to perhaps turn Donald Trump into a more likable fellow. It is we heard Mike Pence say in the 60 Minutes interview, call him a good man 3 times in the interview, although we know that the two men don't really know each other very well. It is a theme they have been banging like a drum of late. What can happen here, perhaps, that can then make him perhaps more appealing?
A lot can happen. Donald Trump's going to arrive here in Cleveland as the most negatively viewed major party nominee in modern history. He's really in the hole here in the polls, and I think there's going to be an effort to show that he's strong, but also to show that he's ready to be president, that he has the qualifications, that he has the judgment, that he has the character. These are all issues that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats have been attacking him on. And starting tonight with national security, I think part of the goal, the objective here, is to make Americans feel comfortable with him as commander-in-chief in such dangerous times. But there's also a likability component. His wife, Melania Trump, is going to be speaking tonight. I think she's going to try to soften him a little bit and make people feel comfortable with him, let them see another side of him. He's not just the brash billionaire on TV attacking people, but he has a softer side. He's a father to a 10-year-old. We'll hear a lot about that, I think.
Leslie, we also know now that Donald Trump will be introducing his wife tonight. Again, it's a night about security. We're going to be hearing from Michael Flynn, the retired lieutenant general, but also with regard to his wife then speaking tonight of the 4 nights. What do you make of it?
Again, it's not very common. It's not traditional, nothing about it. But, of course, the last 2 conventions, the first night, was really it was scrapped because of threat of hurricanes. So this time we have a different type of force coming in. And I think that everything is so unconventional with respect to that. And it's this weird juxtaposition of let's talk national security. He's very tough, but I'm going to soften him with somebody with a family. I think you're going to see the family consistently for the next 4 days try to soften and put a narrative around Donald Trump that shows that he can be compassionate, he is authentic in his nature, and that he is reasonable. This idea of being reasonable is probably the part that I would say women voters particularly are the most attuned to.
Is it a story that undecided voters perhaps want to hear? We shall see as away we go. Philip Rucker, The Washington Post, Leslie Sanchez of Us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.